Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. In our previous lectures, we continued with our discussion of various individual gods and goddesses of Greece, examining in particular Apollo and Artemis, two of Zeus's most prominent children in Greek myth, and we observed through various works of Greek literature some of their features, qualities, and fields of operation. In this lecture, we are going to continue our examination of individual Olympian gods by looking at another of Zeus's children, one of his youngest sons, Hermes. Hermes is the son of the minor goddess Maia. Similar to how Leto primarily exists as the mother of Apollo and Artemis, Maia is notable only for being the mother of Hermes, with no unique traits or stories of her own. There are no independent myths centered around her. Similar to how Apollo and Artemis are commonly reduced to their associations with the sun and moon, Hermes is often narrowly defined as the god's messenger. This is certainly one of his roles, which we read about in myth, though far from the only one. In terms of a very fine example of it, we read in the Aeneid, that great Roman epic written by the poet Virgil at the end of the 1st century BC. And there is a fine description of Hermes, or in the Latin, Mercury, who is dispatched by Zeus, or Jupiter in Latin, to go and send a message to the Trojan prince Aeneas, who has been shipwrecked on the shores of Carthage in northern Africa, and has fallen in love with the Carthaginian queen Dido. And one of her suitors, a man named Iarbas, who's interested in marrying her, but she has no interest in him, prays to Zeus and asks for deliverance, basically, from the situation that this woman he's in love with is in love with another, this Trojan prince Aeneas. And Aeneas, of course, is destined to found the bloodline in Italy that will ultimately spring forth Romulus, the founder of Rome. That is his destiny, not to be shacking up with Dido in North Africa. And so Hermes is dispatched, and let us read that scene. As he, this would be Iarbas, prayed and clutched the altar stone, all-able Jupiter heard him and turned his eyes upon the royal walls, upon the lovers, this would be Dido and Aeneas, who had forgotten their good name. He speaks to Mercury, commanding him, "Be on your way, my son. Call up the zephyrs, the west winds. Glide on your wings. Speak to the Dardan chieftain, Aeneas, who lingers now at Tyrian Carthage, paying not a jot of attention to the cities the fates have given him. Mercury, carry across the speeding winds the words I urge. His lovely mother did not promise such a son to us. She did not save him twice from Grecian arms for this, but to be master of Italy, a land teeming with empire and seething with war, to father a race from Teucer's high blood, to place all earth beneath his laws. But if the brightness of such deeds is not enough to kindle him, if he cannot attempt the task for his own fame, does he, a father, grudge Ascanius the walls of Rome? Ascanius is his son. What is he pondering? What hope can hold him here among his enemies, not caring for his own Ausonian sons or for Lavinian fields in Italy? He must sell, and he must sail, and this is all. My message lies in this." His words were ended. Mercury made ready to follow his great father's orders. First he laces on his golden sandals, winged to bear him, swift as whirlwinds high across the land and water. Then he takes his wand. With this he calls pale spirits up from Orcus, the underworld, and down to dreary Tartarus sends others. He uses this to give sleep and recall it, and to unseal the eyes of those who have died. His trust in this, he spurs the winds and skims the troubled clouds. And now in flight he sights the summit and high sides of hardy Atlas, who props up heaven with his crest, Atlas, whose head is crowned with pines and battered by the wind and rain and always girdled by black clouds. His shoulders' cloak is falling snow. Above the old man's chin the rivers rush. His bristling beard is stiff with ice. Here first Selene's god, poised on his even wings and halted. Then he hurled himself headlong, and seaward with his body like a bird that, over shores and reefs where fishes throng, swoops low along the surface of the waters. Not unlike this, Seleni's god between the earth and heaven as he flies, cleaving the sandy shore of Libya from the winds that sweep from Atlas, father of his mother. As soon as his winged feet have touched the outskirts, he sees Aeneas, founding fortresses and fashioning new houses. And his sword was starred with tawny jasper, and the cloak that draped his shoulders blazed with Tyrian purple, a gift that wealthy Dido wove for him. She had run golden thread along the web. And Mercury attacks at once. Are you now laying the foundation of high Carthage, as servant of a woman, building her a splendid city here? Are you forgetful of what is your own kingdom, your own fate? The very God of gods, whose power sways both earth and heaven, sends me down to you from bright Olympus. He himself has asked me to carry these commands through the swift air. What are you pondering or hoping for while squandering your ease in Libyan lands? For if the brightness of such deeds is not enough to kindle you, if you cannot attempt the task for your own fame, remember Ascanius, growing up, the hopes you hold for Iulus, your own heir, to whom are owed the realm of Italy and land of Rome. So did Seleni's god speak out. He left the sight of mortals even as he spoke and vanished into thin air. Now, it's a very beautiful description and far from the only one in classical literature. So clearly, one of Hermes's roles is as the messenger, taking messages from particularly Jupiter or Zeus to mortals. But although delivering messages is one of his duties, Hermes is a far more intricate deity than simply labeling him as a messenger suggests. Such a description barely scratches the surface of his complexity. Much like his siblings Apollo and Artemis, Hermes oversees a diverse range of domains that at first glance appear oddly unrelated. He is the protector of messengers, heralds, merchants, thieves, beggars, travelers, roads, crossroads, cattle, and cattle herders, as well as liars and tricksters. Additionally, Hermes serves a crucial role in Greek myth in guiding souls to the underworld. We heard a bit of that here in this description. And in Greek, he is known as the psychopompus, the psychopomp, that is the leader of the soul guide. And this is one of the descriptions that we read of that, just a small we will actually take a look at that as a moment of that in Greek literature later on in today's lecture. But we might begin by just simply asking the question, is it possible to find a common thread among Hermes's various roles, similar to how I connected Artemis's diverse traits to her essence of wildness? I believe there is. Many scholars argue that Hermes's main feature is his association with boundaries and transitions, the creation, crossing, and movement across boundaries. In activities like trade, theft even, and the guiding of souls to the underworld, Hermes oversees the crossing of both physical and metaphorical boundaries. This offers one way to unify his attributes. Another perspective, which I also lean towards, is viewing Hermes as a god primarily connected with exchange, whether it's an exchange of goods or other forms of exchange. One of the most key texts from the ancient world to understand this figure is the Homeric hymn to Hermes, and it recounts his birth and early actions, supporting certainly the idea that Hermes is primarily a deity of exchange. According to the hymn, the Homeric hymn to Hermes, shortly after being born, Hermes ventures outside of the cave where his mother, Maia, gave him birth, and there he finds a turtle, a tortoise. He kills it and transforms its shell into a lyre, a stringed instrument, that's his L-Y-R-E, lyre, a stringed instrument central to Greek music and poetry. So his first act in life is therefore to create an object which he can later use in a trade, and he does just that, because later in the story, Hermes steals Apollo's cattle, and when confronted by Apollo, Hermes offers a trade. He exchanges the lyre for control over Apollo's cattle. And this episode highlights several aspects of Hermes's nature, his role in exchange, his association with theft, and his involvement in barter. And it is notable, isn't it, that Hermes' first action after birth is to equip himself with something he can later use to negotiate and trade. Let us now read this rather long Homeric hymn together. Muse, sing of Hermes, the son of Zeus and Maia, lord of Selene and Arcadia, rich in flocks, the luck-bringing messenger of the immortals, whom Maia bare, the rich-tressed nymph, when she was joined in love with Zeus, a shy goddess, for she avoided the company of the blessed gods, and lived within a deep shady cave. There the son of Cronos used to lie with the rich-tressed nymph, unseen by deathless gods and mortal men, at dead of night, while sweet sleep should hold white-armed Hera fast. And when the purpose of great Zeus was fixed in heaven, she was delivered, and a notable thing was come to pass. For then she bare a son of many shifts, blandly cunning, as a robber, a cattle-driver, a bringer of dreams, a watcher by night, a thief at the gates, one who was soon to show forth wonderful deeds among the deathless gods. Born with the dawning, at midday he played on the lyre, and in the evening he stole the cattle of far-shooting Apollo on the 4th day of the month. For on that day queenly Maia bare him. So soon as he had leaped from his mother's heavenly womb, he lay not long waiting in his holy cradle, but he sprang up and sought the oxen of Apollo. But as he stepped over the threshold of the high-roofed cave, he found a tortoise there, and gained endless delight. For it was Hermes who first made the tortoise a singer. The creature fell in his way at the courtyard gate, where it was feeding on the rich grass before the dwelling, waddling along. When he saw it, the luck-bringing son of Zeus laughed and said, "An omen of great luck for me so soon. I do not slight it. Hail, comrade of the feast, lovely in shape, sounding at the dance. With joy I meet you. Where got you that rich gaud for covering, that spangled shell? A tortoise living in the mountains? But I will take and carry you within. You will help me, and I will do you no disgrace, though first of all you must profit me. It is better to be at home. Harm may come out of doors. Living you shall be a spell against mischievous witchcraft, but if you die, then you shall make sweetest song." Thus speaking, he took up the tortoise in both hands and went back into the house, carrying his charming toy. Then he cut off its limbs and scooped out the marrow of the mountain tortoise with a scoop of gray iron. As a swift thought darts through the heart of a man when thronging cares haunt him, or as bright glances flash from the eye, so glorious Hermes planned both thought and deed at once. He cut stalks of reed to measure and fix them, fastening their ends across the back and through the shell of the tortoise, and then stretched ox-hide all over it by his skill. Also he put in the horns and fitted a crosspiece upon the two of them, and stretched 7 strings of sheep-gut. But when he had made it, he proved each string in turn with the key as he held the lovely thing. At the touch of his hand it sounded marvelously, and as he tried it the gods sang sweet random snatches, even as youths bandy taunts at festivals. He sang of Zeus, the son of Cronos, and neat-shod Maia, the converse which they had before in the comradeship of love, telling all the glorious tale of his own begetting. He celebrated too the handmaids of the nymph and her bright home, and the tripods all about the house, and the abundant cauldrons. But while he was singing of all these, his heart was bent on other matters, and he took the hollow lyre and laid it in his sacred cradle, and sprang from the sweet-smelling hall to a watch-place, pondering sheer trickery in his heart, deeds such as knavish folk pursue in the dark night-time, for he longed to taste flesh. The sun was going down beneath the earth towards ocean with his horses and chariot, when Hermes came hurrying to the shadowy mountains of Pieria, where the divine cattle of the blessed gods had their steads, and grazed the pleasant unmown meadows. Of these the son of Maia, the sharp-eyed slayer of Argos, then cut off from the herd 50 loud lowing kine, and drove them straggling wise across a sandy place, turning their hoof-prints aside. Also he bethought him of a crafty ruse, and reversed the marks of their hoofs, making the front behind and the hind before, while he himself walked the other way. Then he wove sandals with wicker-work by the sand of the sea, wonderful things, unthought of, unimagined, for he mixed together tamarisk and myrtle twigs, fastening together an armful of their flesh, young wood, and tied them, leaves and all securely under his feet as light sandals. The brushwood, the glorious slayer of Argos, plucked in Pieria as he was preparing for his journey, making shift as one making haste for a long journey. But an old man tilling his flowering vineyard saw him as he was hurrying down the plain through the grassy Onchestus. So the son of Maia began and said to him, Old man, digging out about your vines with bowed shoulders, surely you shall have much wine when all these bear fruit, if you obey me and strictly remember not to have seen what you have seen, and not to have heard what you have heard, and to keep silent when nothing of your own is harmed. When he had said this much, he hurried the strong cattle on together through many shadowy mountains and echoing gorges and flowery plains. Glorious Hermes drove them. And now the divine night, his dark alley, was mostly past, and dawn that sets folk to work was quickly coming on. While bright Selene, the moon, daughter of the Lord Pallas, Megamedes' son, had just climbed her watchpost, when the strong son of Zeus drove the wide-browed cattle of Phoebus Apollo to the river Alpheus. And they came unwearied to the high-roofed biers and the drinking troughs that were before the noble meadow. Then, after he had well fed the loud bellowing cattle with fodder, and driven them into the byre, close packed and chewing lotus, and began to seek the art of fire, he chose a stout laurel branch and trimmed it with the knife. There's a break in the text here. He held it firmly in his hand, and the hot smoke rose up, for it was Hermes who first invented fire sticks and fire. Next he took many dried sticks and piled them thick and plenty in a sunken trench, and flame began to glow, spreading afar the blast of fierce burning fire. And while the strength of glorious Hephaestus was beginning to kindle the fire, he dragged out two lowing horned cows close to the fire, for great strength was with him. He threw them, both panting, upon their backs on the ground, and rolled them on their sides, bending their necks over, and pierced their vital cord. Then he went on from task to task. First he cut up the rich fatted meat, and pierced it with wooden spits, and roasted the flesh in honorable chine, and the paunch, full of dark blood, altogether. He laid them there upon the ground, and spread out the hides on a rugged rock, and so they are still there many ages afterwards, a long, long time after all this, and are continually. Next, glad-hearted Hermes dragged the rich meats he had prepared, and put them on a smooth, flat stone, and divided them into 12 portions, distributed by lot, making each portion wholly honorable. Then glorious Hermes longed for the sacrificial meat, for the sweet savor wearied him, god though he was. Nevertheless, his proud heart was not prevailed upon to devour the flesh, although he greatly desired it. But he put away the fat and all the flesh in the high-roofed byre, placing them high up to be a token of his youthful theft. And after that, he gathered dry sticks and utterly destroyed with fire all the hooves and all the heads. And when the god had duly finished all, he threw his sandals into deep eddying Alpheus, and quenched the embers, covering the black ashes with sand, and so spent the night, while Selene's soft light shone down. Then the god went straight back again at dawn to the bright crests of Selene, and no one met him on the long journey, either of the blessed gods or mortal men, nor did any dog bark. And luck-bringing Hermes, the son of Zeus, passed edgeways through the keyhole of the hall like the autumn breeze, even as mist. Straight through the cave he went, and came to the rich inner chamber, walking softly, and making no noise as one might upon the floor. Then glorious Hermes went hurriedly to his cradle, wrapping his swaddling clothes about his shoulders as though he were a feeble babe, and lay playing with the covering about his knees. But at his left hand he kept close his sweet lyre. But the god did not pass unseen by the goddess his mother, but she said to him, How now, you rogue? Whence come you back so at night time, you that wear shamelessness as a garment? And now I surely believe the son of Leto will soon have you forth out of doors, with unbreakable cords about your ribs, or you will live a rogue's life in the glens, robbing by wiles. Go to, then, your father got you to be a great worry to mortal men and deathless gods. Then Hermes answered her with crafty words, Mother, why do you seek to frighten me like a feeble child, whose heart knows few words of blame, a fearful babe that fears its mother's scolding? Nay, but I will try whatever plan is best, and so feed myself and you continually. We will not be content to remain here as you bid, alone of all the gods, unfed with offerings and prayers. Better to live in fellowship with the deathless gods continually, rich, wealthy, and enjoying stories of grain. than to sit always in a gloomy cave. And as regards honor, I too will enter upon the right that Apollo has. If my father will not give it to me, I will seek it, and I am able, to be a prince of robbers. And if Leto's most glorious son shall seek me out, I think another and a greater loss will befall him. For I will go to Pytho to break into his great house, and will plunder therefrom splendid tripods and cauldrons, and gold, and plenty of bright iron, and much apparel, and you shall see it if you will. With such words they spoke together, the son of Zeus, who holds the Aegis, and the lady Maia. Now Eros, the early born, was rising from deep-flowing ocean, bringing light to men, when Apollo, as he went, came to Onchestus, the lovely grove and sacred place of the loud-roaring holder of the earth. There he found an old man grazing his beast along the pathway from his courtyard fence, and the all-glorious son of Leto began and said to him, Old man, weeder of Gracian Cestus, I am come here from Pieria, seeking cattle, cows all of them, all with curving horns, from my herd. The black bull was grazing alone away from the rest, but fierce-eyed hounds followed the cows, 4 of them, all of one mind, like men. These were left behind, the dogs and the bull, which is a great marvel. But the cows strayed out of the soft meadow away from the pasture when the sun was just going down. Now tell me this, old man born long ago, have you seen one passing along behind those cows? Then the old man answered and said to him, My son, it is hard to tell all that one's eyes see, for many wayfarers pass to and fro this way, some bent on much evil, and some on good. It is difficult to know each one. However, I was digging about my plot of vineyard all day long, until the sun went down, and I thought, good sir, but I do not know for certain, that I marked a child, whoever the child was, that followed long-horned cattle, an infant who had a staff and kept walking from side to side. He was driving them backwards way, with their heads toward him. So said the old man. And when Apollo heard this report, he went yet more quickly on his way, and presently, seeing a long-winged bird, he knew at once by that omen that thief was the child of Zeus, the son of Cronos. So the Lord Apollo, son of Zeus, hurried on to goodly Pylos, seeking his shambling oxen, and he had his broad shoulders covered with a dark cloud. But when the far shooter perceived the tracks, he cried, Oh! Truly, this is a great marvel that my eyes behold. These are indeed the tracks of straight-horned oxen, but they are turned backwards towards the flowery meadow. But these others are not the footprints of man or woman, or gray wolves, or bears, or lions, nor do I think they are the tracks of a rough-maned centaur. Whoever it be that with swift feet makes such monstrous footprints, wonderful are the tracks on this side of the way, but yet more wonderfully are those on that. When he had so said, the Lord Apollo, the son of Zeus, hastened on and came to the forest-clad mountain of Selene, and the deep-shadowed cave in the rock where the divine nymph brought forth a child of Zeus, who is the son of Cronos. A sweet odor spread over the lovely hill, and many thin-shanked sheep were grazing on the grass. Then far-shooting Apollo himself stepped down in haste over the stone threshold into the dusky cave. Now when the son of Zeus and Maia saw Apollo in a rage about his cattle, he snuggled down in his fragrant swaddling clothes, and as wood ash covers over the deep embers of tree stumps, so Hermes cuddled himself up when he saw the far-shooting shooter. He squeezed head and hands and feet together in a small space like a newborn child seeking sweet sleep, though in truth he was wide awake, and he kept his lyre under his armpit. But the son of Leto was aware, and failed not to perceive the beautiful mountain nymph and her dear son, albeit a little child, and swathed so craftily. He peered in every corner of the great dwelling, and Taking a bright key, he opened 3 closets full of nectar and lovely ambrosia, and much gold and silver was stored in them, and many garments of the nymph, some purple and some silvery white, such as are kept in the sacred houses of the blessed gods. Then, after the son of Leto had searched out the recesses of the great house, he spake to glorious Hermes, Child, lying in the cradle, make haste and tell me of my cattle, or we too will soon fall out angrily. For I will take and cast you into dusty Tartarus, and awful, hopeless darkness, and neither your mother nor your father shall free you, or bring you up again out to the light, but you will wander under the earth, and be the leader amongst little folk. Then Hermes answered him with crafty words, Son of Leto, what harsh words are these you have spoken? And is it cattle of the field you are come here to seek? I have not seen them, I have not heard of them, no one has told me of them, I cannot give news of them, nor win the reward for news. Am I like a cattle lighter, a stalwart person? This is no task for me. Rather, I care for other things. I care for sleep, and milk of my mother's breast, and wrappings round my shoulders, and warm baths. Let no one hear the cause of this dispute, for this would be a great marvel indeed among the deathless gods, that a child newly born should pass in through the forepart of the house with cattle of the field. Herein you speak extravagantly. I was but born yesterday, and my feet are soft, and the ground beneath is rough. Yes, nevertheless, if you will have it so, I will swear a great oath by my father's head, and vow that neither I am guilty myself, nor have I seen any other who stole your cows, whatever cows may be, for I know them only by hearsay. So then, said Hermes, shooting quick glances from his eyes, and he kept raising his brows and looking this way and that, whistling long and listening to Apollo's story as to an idle tale. But far-working Apollo laughed softly and said to him, O rogue, deceiver, crafty in heart, you talk so innocently that I most surely believe that you have broken into many a well-built house, and stripped more than one poor wretch bare this night, gathering his goods together all over the house without noise. You will plague many a lonely herdsman in mountain glades when you come on herds and thick-fleeced sheep, and have a hankering after flesh. But come now, if you would not sleep your last and latest sleep, get out of your cradle, you comrade of dark night. Surely hereafter this shall be your title amongst the deathless gods, to be called the Prince of Robbers continually. So said Phoebus Apollo, and took the child and began to carry him. But at that moment the strong slayer of Argos had his plan, and while Apollo held him in his hands, sent forth an omen, a hard-worked belly-serf, a rude messenger, and sneezed directly after. And when Apollo heard it, he dropped glorious Hermes out of his hands on the ground. Then sitting down before him, though he was eager to go on his way, he spoke mockingly to Hermes. Fear not, little swaddling baby, son of Zeus and Maia. I shall find the strong cattle presently by these omens, and you shall lead the way. When Apollo had so said, Cyllenian Hermes sprang up quickly, starting in haste. With both hands he pushed up to his ears the covering that he had wrapped about his shoulders, and said, Where are you carrying me, far worker, hastiest of all the gods? Is it because of your cattle that you are so angry, and harass me? Oh dear, would that all the sort of oxen might perish, for it is not I who stole your cows, nor did I another steal them, whatever cows may be, and of that I have only heard a report. Nay, give right, and take it before Zeus, the son of Cronos. So Hermes the shepherd and Leto's glorious son kept stubbornly disputing each article of their quarrel. Apollo, speaking truly, and then another break in the manuscript, not fairly, sought to seize glorious Hermes because of the cows, but he, the Cyllenian, tried to deceive the god of the silver bow with tricks and cunning words. But when, though he had many wiles, he found the other had as many shifts, he began to walk across the sand, himself in front, while the son of Zeus and Leto came behind. Soon they came, those lovely children of Zeus, to the top of fragrant Olympus, to their father, the son of Cronos. For there were the scales of judgment set before them. There was an assembly on snowy Olympus, and the immortals who perish not were gathering after the hour of gold-throned dawn. Then Hermes and Apollo of the silver bow stood at the knees of Zeus, and Zeus, who thunders on high, spoke to his glorious son and asked him, Phoebus, whence come you driving this great spoil? A child newborn that has the look of a herald. This is a weighty matter that is come before the council of the gods. Then the Lord, far-working Apollo, answered him, O my father, you shall soon hear no trifling tale, though you reproach me that I alone am fond of spoil. Here is a child, a burgling robber, whom I found after a long journey in the hills of Cyllene. For my part, I have never seen one so pert, either among the gods or all men that catch folk unawares throughout the world. He stole away my cows from their meadow, and drove them off in the evening along the shore of the loud roaring sea, making straight for Pylos. There were double tracks, and wonderful they were, such as one might marvel at, the doing of a clever sprite. For as for the cows, the dark dust kept and showed their footprints, leading towards the flowery meadow. But he himself, bewildering creature, crossed the sandy ground, outside the path, not on his feet, nor yet on his hands, but furnished with some other means, he trudged his way, wonder of wonders, as though one walked on slender oak trees. Now, while he followed the cattle across sandy ground, all the tracks showed quite clearly in the dust. But when he had finished the long way across the sand, presently the cow's track and his own could not be traced over the hard ground. But a mortal man noticed him as he drove the wide-browed kine straight towards Pylos, and as soon as he had shut them up quietly and had gone home by crafty turns and twists, he lay down in his cradle in the gloom of a dim cave, as still as dark night, so that not even an eagle, keenly gazing, would have spied him. Much he rubbed his eyes with his hands as he prepared falsehood, and himself straightway said roundly, I have not seen them, I have not heard of them. No man has told me of them. I could not tell you of them, nor win the reward of telling. When he had spoken, Phoebus Apollo sat down, but Hermes on his part answered and said, pointing at the son of Cronos, the lord of all the gods, Zeus, my father, indeed I will speak truth to you, for I am truthful, and I cannot tell a lie. He came to our house today, looking for his shambling cows, as the sun was newly rising. He brought no witnesses with him, nor any of the blessed gods who had seen the theft, but with great violence ordered me to confess, threatening much to throw me into the wide Tartarus. For he has the rich bloom of glorious youth, while I was born but yesterday, as he too knows, nor am I like a cattle lifter, a sturdy fellow. Believe my tale, for you claim to be my own father, that I did not drive his cows to my house, so may I prosper, nor cross the threshold. This I say truly, I reverence Helios greatly and the other gods, and you I love, and him I dread. You yourself know that I am not guilty, and I will swear a great oath upon it, no, by these rich-decked porticos of the gods, and some day I will punish him, strong as he is, for his pitiless inquisition. But now do you help the younger. So spake the Cyllenian, the slayer of Argos, while he kept shooting sidelong glances and kept his swaddling clothes up upon his arm, and did not cast them away. But Zeus laughed out loud to see his evil plotting child well, and cunningly denying guilt about the cattle. And he bade them both to be of one mind and search for the cattle, and guiding Hermes to lead the way, and without mischievousness of heart, to show the place where now he had children, the strong cattle. Then the son of Cronos bowed his head, and goodly Hermes obeyed him, for the will of Zeus, who holds the aegis, easily prevailed with him. Then the two all-glorious children of Zeus hastened both to sandy Pylos, and reached the ford of Alpheus, and came to the fields of the high-roofed byre, where the beasts were cherished at night time. Now, while Hermes went to the cave in the rock and began to drive out the strong cattle, the son of Leto, looking aside, saw the cowhides on the sheer rock, and he asked glorious Hermes at once, How were you able, you crafty rogue, to flay 2 cows, newborn and babyish as you are? As for my part, I dread the strength that will be yours. There is no need you should keep growing long, Cyllenian, son of Maia. So saying, Apollo twisted strong withes in his hands, meaning to bind Hermes with firm bands. But the bands would not hold him, and the withes of osier fell far from him, and began to grow at once from the ground beneath their feet in that very place. And intertwining with one of them, they quickly grew, and covered all the wild roving cattle by the will of thievish Hermes, so that Apollo was astonished as he gazed. Then the strong slayer of Argos looked furtively upon the ground with eyes flashing fire, desiring to hide. Again, a break in the manuscript. Very easily he softened the son of all glorious Leto as he would, stern though the far shooter was. He took the lyre upon his left arm and tried each string in turn with the key, so that it sounded awesomely at his touch. And Phoebus Apollo laughed for joy, for the sweet throb of the marvelous music went to his heart, and a soft longing took hold of his soul as he listened. Then the son of Maia, harping sweetly upon his lyre, took courage and stood at the left hand of Phoebus Apollo. And soon, while he played shrilly on his lyre, he lifted up his voice and sang, and lovely was the sound of his voice that followed. He sang the story of the deathless gods and of the dark earth, how at the first they came to be, and how each one received his portion. First among the gods he honored Mnemosyne, mother of the Muses, in his song, for the son of Maia was of her following. And next the goodly son of Zeus hymned the rest of the immortals, according to their order and age, and told how each was born, mentioning all in order as he struck the lyre upon his arm. But Apollo was seized with a longing not to be allayed, and he opened his mouth and spoke winged words to Hermes. Slayer of oxen, trickster, busy one, comrade of the feast, this song of yours is worth 50 cows, and I believe that presently we shall settle our quarrel peacefully. But come now, tell me this, resourceful son of Maia, has this marvelous thing been with you from your birth? Or did some god or mortal give it to you, a noble gift, and teach you heavenly song? For wonderful is this new uttered sound I hear, the like of which I vow that no man nor god dwelling on Olympus ever yet has known but you, O thievish son of Maia. What skill is this? What song for desperate cares? What way of song? For verily here are three things to hand all at once from which to choose, mirth and love and sweet sleep. And though I am a follower of the Olympian muses who love dances and the bright path of song, the full-toned chant and ravishing thrill of flutes, yet I never cared for any of those feats of skill at young men's revels, as I do now for this. I am filled with wonder, O son of Zeus, at your sweet playing. But now, since you, though little, have such glorious skill, sit down, dear boy, and respect the words of your elders. For now you shall have renown among the deathless gods, you and your mother also. This I will declare to you exactly. By this shaft of cornel wood I will surely make you a leader, renowned among the deathless gods, and fortunate, and will give you glorious gifts, and will not deceive you from first to last. Then Hermes answered him with artful words. You question me carefully, O far worker, yet I am not jealous that you should enter upon my art. This day you shall know it, for I seek to be friendly with you, both in thought and word. Now you well know all things in your heart, since you sit foremost among the deathless gods, O son of Zeus, and are goodly and strong, and why Zeus loves you as all is right, and has given you splendid gifts. And they say that from the utterance of Zeus you have learned both the honors due to the gods, O far worker, and oracles from Zeus, even all his ordinances. Of all these I myself have already learned that you have great wealth. Now you are free to learn whatever you please, but since, as it seems, your heart is so strongly set on playing the lyre, chant and play upon it, and give yourself to merriment, taking this as a gift from me, and do you, my friend, bestow glory on me. Sing well with this clear-voiced companion in your hands, for you are skilled in good and well-ordered utterance. From now on, bring it confidently to the rich feast and lovely dance and glorious revel, a joy by night and by day. Whoso with wit and wisdom inquires of it cunningly, him it teaches through its sound all manner of things that delight the mind, being easily played with gentle familiarities. For it abhors toilsome drudgery. But whoso in ignorance inquires of it violently, to him it chatters mere vanity and foolishness. But you are able to learn whatever you please. So then I will give you this lyre, glorious son of Zeus, while I, for my part, will graze down with wild roving cattle the pastures on hill and horse-feeding plain. So shall the cows covered by the bulls calve abundantly, both males and females. And now there is no need for you, bargainer though you are, to be furiously angry. When Hermes had said this, he held out the lyre, and Phoebus Apollo took it, and readily put his shining whip in Hermes's hand, and ordained him keeper of herds. The son of Maia received it joyfully, while the glorious son of Leto, the Lord far-working Apollo, took the lyre upon his left arm and tried each string with the key. Awesomely it sounded at the touch of the god, while he sang sweetly to its note. Afterwards they too, the all-glorious sons of Zeus, turned the cows back towards the sacred meadow, but themselves hastened back to snowy Olympus, delighting in the lyre. Then wise Zeus was glad, and made them both friends, and Hermes loved the son of Leto continually, even as he does now, when he had given the lyre as token to the far shooter, who played it skilfully, holding it upon his arm. But for himself Hermes found out another cunning art, and made himself the pipes whose sound is heard afar. Then the son of Leto said to Hermes, Son of Maia, guide and cunning one, I fear you may steal from me the lyre and my curved bow together, for you have an office from Zeus to establish deeds of barter amongst men throughout the fruitful earth. Now, if you would only swear me the great oath of the gods, either by nodding your head or by the potent water of Styx, you would do all that can please and ease my heart. Then Maia's son nodded his head and promised that he would never steal anything of all the far shooter possessed, and would never go near his strong house. But Apollo, son of Leto, swore to be fellow and friend to Hermes, vowing that he would love no other among the immortals, neither god nor man sprung from Zeus, better than Hermes. And the father sent forth an eagle in confirmation. And Apollo sware also, Verily I will make you only to be an omen for the immortals and all alike, trusted and honored by my heart. Moreover, I will give you a splendid staff of riches and wealth. It is of gold, with 3 branches, and will keep you scatheless, accomplishing every task, whether of words or deeds that are good, which I claim to know through the utterance of Zeus. But as for soothsaying, noble, heaven-born child, of which you ask, it is not lawful for you to learn it, nor for any other of the deathless gods. Only the mind of Zeus knows that. I am pledged and have vowed and sworn a strong oath that no other of the eternal gods, save I, should know the wise-hearted counsel of Zeus. And do not you, my brother, bearer of the golden wand, bid me tell those decrees which all-seeing Zeus intends. As for men, I will harm one and profit another, sorely perplexing the tribes of unenviable men. Whosoever shall come guided by the call and flight of birds of sure omen, that man shall have advantage through my voice, and I will not deceive him. But whoso shall trust to idly chattering birds, and shall seek to invoke my prophetic art contrary to my will, and to understand more than the eternal gods, I declare that he shall come on an idle journey, yet his gifts I would take. But I will tell you another thing, son of all glorious Maia, and Zeus, who holds the aegis, luck-bringing genius of the gods. There are certain holy ones, sisters born, 3 virgins gifted with wings. Their heads are besprinkled with white meal, and they dwell under a ridge of Parnassus. These are teachers of divination apart from me, the art which I practiced while yet a boy, following herds, though my father paid no heed to it. From their home they fly now here, now there, feeding on honeycomb and bringing all things to pass. And when they are inspired through eating yellow honey, they are willing to speak truth. But if they be deprived of the gods' sweet food, then they speak falsely, as they swarm in and out together. These, then, I give you. Inquire of them strictly, and delight your heart. And if you should teach any mortal so to do, often will he hear your response, if he have good fortune. Take these, son of Maia, and tend the wild roving horned oxen and horses and patient mules. So he spake, and from heaven Father Zeus himself gave confirmation to his words, and commanded that glorious Hermes should be lord over all birds of omen, and grim-eyed lions, and boars with gleaming tusks, and over dogs and all flocks that the wide earth nourishes, and over all sheep. Also that he only should be the appointed messenger to Hades, who, though he takes no gift, shall give him no mean prize. Then the Lord Apollo showed his kindness for the son of Maia by all manner of friendship, and the son of Cronos gave him grace besides. He consorts with all mortals and immortals. A little he profits, but continually throughout the dark night he cozens the tribes of mortal men. And so farewell, son of Zeus and Maya, but I will remember you in another song also. This episode, as I said before, highlights several aspects of Hermes' nature: his role in exchange, his association with theft, and his involvement in barter. It is notable that Hermes' first action after birth is to equip himself with something that he can later use to negotiate and trade. And if we primarily see Hermes as a god of exchange, his further connection to both merchants and thieves becomes more logical. Normally, it might seem strange for the same deity to oversee both uh, thieves and merchants, since merchants would likely seek protection from thieves, and thieves would try to avoid detection by merchants. However, if we focus on the concept of exchange, this dual role makes sense. Whether through legal trade or theft, property is still changing hands. Hermes seems less concerned with how the exchange happens, whether goods are purchased or stolen. Remember, I told you that for the ancient Greek gods, the idea of morality really does not enter into the question at all. And this is a perfect example of that. And he is much more focused on simply the fact of exchange, rather than the morality of that type of exchange. Hermes' connection to cattle also becomes clear when we consider him primarily as a god of exchange. In the early stages of Greek society, as in many other cultures, cattle were a key measure of wealth. A person's riches were often determined by the number of cattle which he owned. Interestingly, in Latin, though not in Greek, the word for money, pecunia, comes directly from the word for herd of cattle, pecus, which you can still hear in things like pecorino romano cheese. This linguistic link between cattle and money underscores the idea that cattle once represented wealth. And so Hermes' association with cattle and herding also aligns with his role as a god presiding over exchange and wealth. How does Hermes' link to messengers and heralds fit with his role as a god of exchange? There are two ways to interpret this. First, if we broaden the concept of exchange beyond material goods, we can see messengers and heralds as facilitators of information exchange, transferring knowledge from one person to another. Hermes, in this sense, oversees the flow of communication. Another perspective is that in ancient societies, where travel was difficult, messengers often had multiple responsibilities. When someone was sent from one city to another, such as from Thebes to Athens, they would likely carry not only messages, but also goods, letters, and other important items. Therefore, messengers and travelers in general became associated with the exchange of goods, which all aligns very nicely with Hermes' broader role in overseeing exchange in a world where only few traveled. Hermes' role as psychopompos, or the guide of souls, can be also understood within the framework of exchange, as we will learn about in a later lecture with Demeter, the goddess Demeter, who tries to immortalize a young child, Demophoon. The souls of the deceased were considered basically the possession of Hades. While people were alive, they were primarily under Zeus's authority, but upon death, they become under Hades' control. When Hermes guides a newly departed soul from the world of the living to the realm of the dead, he is facilitating a form of exchange, therefore, a transfer of a soul from Zeus's domain to that of Hades. And in one very poignant literary example of this, we read in the beginning of Book 24 of the Odyssey, when a group of souls are being led to the underworld by Mercury, and he brings them down to the underworld in this kind of exchange. In addition to all of these traits, and we might say in conclusion, Hermes in the Homeric hymn to Hermes is undeniably portrayed as a trickster. He is shrewd, manipulative, and exceptionally skilled in oratory. His ability to charm others, including gods, with his eloquence enables him to achieve his desires. This trait is particularly advantageous for someone linked to the concept of exchange, especially in a culture where bartering remained a common practice. The capacity to persuade others and to negotiate clever deals only reinforces Hermes' identity as a god of exchange. Okay. Now, in addition to all of these, in addition to the Homeric hymn, an interesting literary fossil, basically, or kind of fragment that has emerged in the last 150 years, since the late 1800s, is actually a dramatized version of this same poem of the Homeric hymn to Hermes. It is known as the Ichneotai by Sophocles. Now, the Ichneotai means the trackers, and it does not exist completely, but a large fragment of it does exist, and it goes down under the category of what is called a satyr play. Now, a satyr play is a type of genre of dramatic poetry in classical Greece, distinct from both Greek tragedy and comedy. It shares some aspects of comedy, but there are certain things that set it apart. It it tended to be performed as the final play, as the fourth and final play of the group of three tragedies that would be performed when a Athenian playwright would perform his works at some of the great city festivals, like the City of Dionysia in ancient Athens. So playwrights would perform three tragedies. We only have one surviving specimen of a trilogy from ancient Greek tragedy, that is the Oresteia of Aeschylus, a series of plays that we will be reading later in this course. But by tradition, after those three tragedies were performed, there would be a satyr play. Now, in classical dramatic traditions, there seems to be a recurrent tendency to present serious drama and broad farce in immediate juxtaposition. For instance, Roman tragedy, we know, was followed by an Atellan farce. Japanese no plays were traditionally followed by kyogen, which are also kind of satirical, or not satirical, but comic. And we know that Elizabethan tragedy, that is the tragedy during Shakespeare's time, was oftentimes followed by jigs. And so, for the most part, at least in the 5th century, the three tragedies of a trilogy were followed by a satyr play, composed by the same author. The only known exception to this is Euripides' Alcestis, that was performed in the year 438, which was presented instead of a satyr play, and is sometimes therefore termed pro-satiric. Most satyr plays, though, were lost in antiquity, and only Euripides' Cyclops survives in the manuscript tradition as our sole surviving whole play, extant play of this genre. However, as I said before, modern papyrus discoveries, especially in the late 19th century in Egypt, in a place called Oxyrhynchus, have greatly increased our knowledge of this genre. And the principal features of the satyr play are the following. One, invariable use of a chorus of satyrs. Now, satyrs, which you see in front of you on the screen there, are small, rustic creatures, half goat, half human, elemental and often comically grotesque. They are regularly accompanied by their father, Silenus, who is a dramatic character in his own right, but also functions as a choral spokesman. Two, satyr plays use mythological plots with mythological travesty as a principal source of humor, okay? Whereas in tragedy, when bad things happen, they are obviously treated very seriously, but in satyr plays, they're treated comically. Three, and this is one of the most distinct differences between satyr plays and comedy, we see the complete absence of satire. So the words satyr and satire actually are not related at all. Satire, that is political lampooning, that comes from the Latin word satura, so nothing to do with satyr in the Greek word. So, but in satyr plays, we see a total absence of satire of contemporary people and events, overt or covert, whereas comedy, ancient Greek comedy, as comedy does nowadays, uses a lot of references to politics and famous people and cultural events going on at the time. Number four, we see the same use of language, meters, and dramatic resources as tragedy, but they're modified by special generic requirements. So occasional colloquial and bawdy language, boisterous dances, and so on. There is also somewhat greater metrical freedom than in tragedy, which we don't have to get into. Number five, we see a use in satyr plays of a relatively few stereotypes of situation, theme, and characterization. Number six, we perceive a typically spirited tone with occasional touches of slapstick and scurrility. Number seven, they are comparatively short in length. So, as I said, our one sole surviving tragedy is Euripides' Cyclops, which is only about 700 lines long. And that is about half the length of all the even the shortest other tragedies. And number eight, the evidence seems to indicate that satyr plays occasionally parodied elements in the preceding tragedies. Okay, so for instance, it is believed that the play The Cyclops by Euripides was performed as part of after the group of three plays that included Euripides' Hecuba, which one of the things that takes place in it is a man has his eyes stabbed out by a vengeful mother because that man has killed her son. And inside of the play, it's a terrifying scene, a horrifying scene, and very painful even to watch in a dramatic kind of format. But in the satyr play, it is the putting out of the eye of the Cyclops by Odysseus, and it's treated with great comic effect. So you see, there's a certain kind of like humorous treatment of what had been a serious element in the tragedy. And this is why the ancient literary critic Demetrius wrote in his work De Elocutione 169, he describes the satyr play as, quote, tragedy at play. And it is a fine aphorism for the specific nature of satiric humor, which largely derives from humorous reemployment of the language and dramaturgy of tragedy, from travesty of the same mythological world, peopled by the same gods and heroes, and from the absurdity created by the intrusion of the man you see in front of you, Silenus, and of course, the satyrs. To a large extent, therefore, the humor of satyr plays consists of poking fun at tragedy, in order, of course, to provide some comic relief. This comically subversive assault on tragedy takes many forms. The satyr play features, above all, a comedy of incongruity. The satyrs are, as I said, elemental creatures, at once fey and subhuman, perpetually interested in immediate gratification of their appetites, lazy, arrogant, or conversely, craven when they are not sure of themselves. In a satiric play known as the Oeneus, could also perhaps be the Scoinius, by Sophocles, they present themselves as for an athletic competition, the prize for which is the hand of the king's daughter. And they give, this is now the satyr speaking, this self-description. We are children of the nymphs, devotees of Bacchus and neighbors of the gods. Every worthwhile art is embodied in us, fighting with spears, wrestling, horsemanship, running, boxing, and biting. In us you will find musical song, knowledgeable prophecy with no fakery, discriminating knowledge of medicine, measuring of the heavens, dancing, lore of the underworld. Hey, is this fund of learning fruitless? All of this is at your disposal. Just give us your daughters. Almost invariably, these satyrs are introduced into a mythological situation in which they have no legitimate place, creating, as I say, an incongruity that is initially absurd and funny, and that can be further exploited. So, for instance, again, speaking of Euripides' Cyclops, an incident which in the Odyssey, Book 7, is characterized by a certain grimness and horror, and by the suffering of sympathetic characters, and which serves as a parable of barbarism and civilization, is dramatized with comic effect by Euripides in his Cyclops. These values are preserved in the play, but the presence of Silenus and the satyrs provides a continuous comic counterpoint. So, for instance, when Odysseus in that play is seeking to make Polyphemus drunk, Silenus keeps trying to steal the wine, and the satyrs lend their comically feckless assistance to Odysseus when he is attempting to blind that ogre. The presence of the satyr chorus performs another function in this and similar plays. They give an aura of unreality to an otherwise distressing situation, thereby signaling to the audience that Odysseus's predicament need not be taken over seriously. And so, when he first lands on the Cyclops' island, he sees the satyrs and rightly exclaims that he has stumbled upon a sort of Dionysiac Never Land. Quote, "We seem to have invaded the polis of Dionysius," he says. End quote. The satyr play's comic assault on tragedy takes other forms. One technique is to create a momentary mood reminiscent of tragedy and then deliberately destroy it. Again, in Cyclops, Odysseus makes a dignified and altogether serious appeal to Polyphemus for mercy, and then Silenus chimes in with one of his typically idiotic remarks. Similarly, in a fragment of a satyr play by Aeschylus, Silenus is seeking to bully Danae into a marriage, which may in fact be intended to parody a serious situation in the tragedy Polydectes, which is lost. And Danae in the satyr play delivers herself of a miniature replica of a tragic heroine's lament, but then she ends with a distinctly off, "That's all I have to say." The heroes of tragedy are or villain who appears as larger than life in tragedy, reappears in satyr plays either as a serious figure surrounded by incongruous absurdity, whereby his own seriousness appears humorously inappropriate, or he himself is a comical figure. Again, in the Cyclops, it seems the former technique is employed. Odysseus himself is treated with complete respect, but humor is generated by the fact that, despite his initial exclamation that he has stumbled upon the polis of Dionysius, he reacts in deadly earnest to a situation which we perceive to be less than wholly serious. The Cyclops is essentially no more than a mock blustering boogeyman from a fairy tale. In other satyr plays, the traditional Greek heroes might themselves be presented as ludicrous and grotesque. Thus, in Sophocles' Sundepnon, the Achaean warlords engaged in a comically degrading squabble at a banquet, and one of them, perhaps Odysseus, received the contents of a chamber pot over his head. Pericles was a common character in satyr plays and often was featured as a gargantuan eater, drinker, and wencher. If the satyr play takes a humorous look at the heroes prominent in tragedy and perhaps at tragedy's ideals of heroism in some more general sense, so too it displays a nose-thumbing attitude towards some of the characteristic attitudes of tragedy. In tragedy, for instance, cleverness and deception are presented with toleration, most notably in Euripides' rescue plays, Iphigenia and Taurus and the Helen, which have other significant points of contact with satyr plays, and may even themselves, like Alcestis, been pro-satiric. Otherwise, when a clever man appears in tragedy, he is usually represented as unprincipled and dangerous. One thinks of the anonymous demagogue in Euripides' Orestes, and above all of Odysseus in such plays as Sophocles' Philoctetes and Euripides' Hecuba, Iphigenia, and Aulus. But in many satyr plays, such as the Ichneotai of Sophocles and others, the plot hinges on slime misrepresentation. A clever man or trickster is often the hero. Many satyr plays deal with subtle plots for overcoming ogres, monsters, and other villains, and wily schemes for theft and deception. And there is every reason to think that these were presented as tolerable or even admirable. The Greeks always liked a tale of a good piece of deception, and the satyr play seems frequently to have catered to this taste. Also, the hero of many satyr plays was some such trickster, like Odysseus, who is a hero in satyr plays just as frequently as he is a villain in tragedies. Hermes, of course, is the patron of trickery and theft, and he makes appearances in other satyr plays besides the Ichneotai as well. Other mythological figures noted for their cleverness may also have been characterized as tricksters in satyr plays, such as Oedipus in Aeschylus' Sphinx and Prometheus in Prometheus Purchaios. We know that Prometheus was presented as a trickster in some comedies also. Similarly, the many moral shortcomings of Silenus and the satyrs seem to have at least been regarded with toleration rather than condemnation. a sharp contrast with the morality of tragedy. This tendency to use the satyr as mock tragedy, as a means of disarming the tension and anxiety tragedy creates, was carried to its logical conclusion when instances in which a satyr play was contrived to parody elements in the tragedies of the preceding trilogy occurred. This is most evident in the satyr plays of Aeschylus, in which the principal character of the trilogy reappears in a comic situation in the accompanying satyr play. Thus, Lycurgus appeared in both the Lycurgia trilogy and the following Lycurgus Satyricus, and Oedipus in the Oedipoidea and Sphinx Satyricus. In a variant of this parodizing technique, the satyr play presents a humorous counterpart, not of a tragic character, but of a dramatic situation, which in the tragedy or trilogy is treated seriously. I already gave you the example of the blinding by Hecuba and the blinding of Polyphemus in the Euripides' Cyclops. There are stronger grounds for thinking that Euripides wrote the Cyclops as a parody of Hecuba. The blinding, of course, is the main point, but both plays are also concerned with the problem of civilized behavior, expressed in terms of nomos, or the word for law or culture in Greek. Both contain a plea for mercy based on idealism, turned aside with a cold lecture about expediency. If the two plays were therefore performed together, there is an ironic contrast between Odysseus's rejection of Hecuba's plea in the tragedy and his own plea to the Cyclops in the satyr play. Polymestor, the man who gets blinded in the Hecuba, appears to be an invention of Euripides, and his characterization seems modeled on that of the Cyclops. And these correspondences suggest that the Cyclops is a comic foil for Hecuba. And although no external evidence exists, it is an attractive idea that the correspondences are intentional. That is, that both plays were produced in the same year. Okay, now let us read then the little extended fragment that we have of the Ichneumon of Sophocles, which, as I say, dramatizes the scene of the Homeric hymn to Hermes. The scene is outdoors. There is a cave upstage center represented by the Scanae door. Apollo enters on the right. I, Apollo, proclaim to all gods and all mortal men, I shall give a golden basin to whoever can bring back my cattle from far away. It is quite unpleasant to me that they are gone, all of them, cows, calves, heifers, they are all gone, and I look in vain for their tracks, while they wander far from their own mangers. I never thought that any of the gods or of men, whose lives are like a single day, would dare do such a thing. Since I found out about this, shocked as I was, I have been seeking them, and I have proclaimed the deed so that no god or mortal man could be unaware of it. I am beside myself. I have gone to visit the whole nation of the Locrians, those who inhabit Opus, those in Ozolis, those in Cnemus by Cephisus. I have gone to Aetolia and to Acarnanian Argos, and there I came to the grove of Zeus at Dodona, shaded by leaves of prophecy. I then hastened to the fruitful plains of Thessaly and the wealthy cities of Boeotia. Then I came to Attica, to holy Athens, but I see my cows nowhere. Then I came to Dorian Argos and the nearby hill. From there I came in one leap to the Stymphalian lake and Mount Selene, hard to climb. I speak to the forest. If any shepherd or any rustic or any charcoal burner is here, or any satyr from the mountains, child of the river nymphs, I announce these things to one and all. Whoever can capture the one who stole the cattle of Apollo, Pion, his is the reward that stands here. Enter Silenus. Well, as soon as I heard you shouting your proclamation, I came as fast as an old man can, because I want to help you out, Phoebus Apollo, and perhaps I can hunt up your cattle. Then a messenger will announce my golden reward. I will tell my children to look carefully if you really do mean what you promised. I will indeed. Only confirm your promise. I will bring you back your cattle, but you confirm the reward. Whoever finds them will have it. It is ready at hand. And then there is a break in the manuscript. What? What are you saying? I say that you and all the race of your children will be free, exit Apollo. Enter the chorus of satyrs. They sing excitedly. Come, come here, see if you can find the footprints of the lost cattle. Up, 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 high. Oh, oh, listen, I tell you, get the thief underground, finish the job. My old father, how can we find out the secret thefts in the night? If I did meet free life of my father, so may the dear God bring an end to my labors, as he has shown us the extraordinary excellence of his gold. Oh, gods, fortune and the God who leads in the right way, grant me success as I race out to seek out the prey, the spoil, and the booty, the cattle stolen from Phoebus. If there is anyone who has seen them or heard about them, he would become my friend by telling me, and he would help me to help Lord Phoebus. But if someone does not tell what he knows, his reward will be the gods' disapproval. Hey, does anyone say or does anyone know where the cattle are? It seems that I must begin the search. Come, all of you, track them by their scent. If there is any trace left anywhere, bent over, crouching to the ground, be guided by the scent. Carry out your search this way and bring it to a worthy fulfillment. Exit Silenus. The satyrs divide into two groups and begin sniffing around the stage. Oh God, oh God, oh God, oh ha, we seem to have it. Stand still, don't move. There they are, the marks of the cattle. Quiet, some god is taking them to a new home. What should we do, my friend? Do we have to go get them? Why do you think they're in there? Definitely all the signs says so clearly. Look, here's the same hoof mark again. Look at what? Look at that. They measure out to exactly the same size. Make way, and if you hear any sound from the cattle, I don't yet hear their voices clearly, but these tracks and footprints are obviously those of the cattle. Hey, as Zeus is my witness, the tracks turn around and go backward. Look at them. Why is that? Why would their line wheel around? The front is turned to the back, and they're all tangled up together. The cowherd must have been awfully confused. What kind of a way to hunt is that? Bent over and leaning down to the ground. Where are you going? I don't understand. You're lying there like a hedgehog fallen on the ground, or an ape sticking his head forward and having a temper tantrum. What's this? Where on earth did you learn this and how? Tell me, because I certainly don't understand what you're doing. Oh, 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 the chorus is still squealing as he starts to speak. What are you oohing for? What are you afraid of? What do you see? What frightful thing are you looking at? What are you carrying on like Bacchantes? That is Dionysus worshippers. Is there a hawk nearby? From offstage we hear a lyre being tuned. Since the player is in fact Hermes, it sounds divine. But no mortal has ever heard this instrument before, and the satyrs are terrified. They abruptly stop squealing. Do you know what that is? Why are you so quiet when you were just now babbling away? Be quiet. What is it over there that you're trying to get away from? Listen. I'll listen, but I don't hear any sound. Do what I say. No one is helping me with this hunt. Listen for a moment, will you? When we went over there, we were assaulted by a noise like no one ever heard before. Why are you running away, afraid of a noise, you wretched beasts, with your filthy bodies all smeared with wax, seeing terrors in every shadow, scared of everything? You're gutless and careless and servile. You're nothing but body and tongue and voice. You trust to words and flee from actions. Worst of animals, how did you ever come to have a father like me? There are lots of monuments to my courage. When I was young, songs sung at every household's wedding feast. I was never put to flight, never afraid, and I didn't quiver at noises made by animals up on the mountains. Instead, I accomplished great things with my spear. That brilliant spear is now besmirched by you, because some new sound from the shepherds has frightened you, like the babies you are, and you've given up on the golden wealth that Phoebus said he was offering to you, to say nothing of freedom, which he also offered to you and to me. You've put all that away and gone to sleep. Unless you get back to work tracking those cows and their cowherd, wherever they are, you'll be making noises of your own for your own cowardice. Father, walk beside me, so we'll know whether I'm really a coward. If you're here, you'll know firsthand, not through rumors. I will approach this sound with you, and I will call out and whistle as I will call a dog. You line up there by three, and I will go beside you and get you straightened out again. Perhaps separate. Uh, ooh, 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 shh, say what you're working on. Why did you shout and scream? It's pointless. And why were you suspicious of me? Who's holding back in our first task. You are, he came, you are mine, lead the way, this way, ho! Who is the dragon, the wrinkled one, goddess of fair winds? You were beside me drunk. Oh, papa papoy, hey, filthy polluted one, as soon as you get away from here, you'll be set free. But don't get lost. Come on, straight ahead, this way. Now we'll get the crook. Father, why are you quiet? Isn't that what we're saying? Isn't what we're saying true? Aren't you listening? Or are you deafened by the noise? Shh, what is that? I'm getting out of here. Stay if you can. No way. You go ahead and keep looking and track down the cows any way you want to and take the gold. Unless biggest time. No, I won't leave you, nor sneak away from the work before we know for sure what's going on there. Addressing the source of the noise. Hey, you in there, voice. Reward, you will be happy at home. To Salinas, he's not coming out. To the noisemaker again, but I'll force you out, making the ground rumble with my swift leaps and kicks, so you'll listen even if you're altogether deaf. Selene emerges from the cave. Selene, satyrs, why have you rushed up here making all this noise on this mountain covered with green woods full of animals? Have you got yourselves a new job? You used to bring joy to your master, who would put on a fawn skin and carry a thyrsus in his hands, who you would dance around the god shouting Evoe, along with the nymphs who are his family and a crowd of children. But now I don't know what you're doing. Where is this whirlwind of new craziness taking you? I heard something odd. First, nearby, orders like you'd give to hunting dogs when they get near a wild animal's den in a thicket. Then, at the same time, stretched out from the mouth of the thief. Then, announcement. After that, they went away, feet stomping, and a confused sound came from nearby. It would be different if. So I heard the sounds of wrong notes. You deep-girdled nymph, don't be angry. No one's starting a war with you, nor has any unfriendly, trifling word touched my tongue. Please don't threaten me, but graciously tell me what I need. Who is it who seems to speak in a wonderful, inspired voice from below the earth? That's better. You sound gentler now. You would learn more by hunting rather than from a cowherd's great deeds or a nymph's ordeal. I won't put up with your loud, quarrelsome words, but calm down and tell me what is your need. Mighty Selene, lady of this land, I'll tell you in a moment why I've come. You first tell us about the scraping noise and who's making it. First of all, understand this. If you say one word of what I'm about to tell you, you'll be in trouble. This business is a secret even among the gods, so that no news of it may come to Hera. You see, Zeus came secretly to Atlas's house, to the deep-girdled goddess, and in a cave begot a single son. I am bringing him up myself, for his mother's strength is shaken by sickness as if by a storm. So I stay by his crib and take care of his food and drink and rest all day and all night. He grows day by day in a very unusual way, and I'm astounded and afraid. It's not even 6 days since he was born, and he already stands as tall as a young man. His growth spurt hasn't wasted any time coming. He's the kind of child that's in my treasure house. His father has ensured he would be difficult to find. He has a hidden machine that makes the sound you're asking about. That so surprised you. It's a box full of pleasure that he made in just one day from a dead animal he found, and he's down there shaking it. Then there's some unspecified things going on in here. And she describes the tortoiseshell, short like a pitcher and covered with a colorful hide. Was it like a cat or rather a leopard? In between, really. It's round with short legs. Closer to a ferret, then, or a crab? No, that's not it. Try something else. Is it like one of the horned beetles that live on Etna? Now you're getting closer to the beast. And which part makes the sound, the inside or the outside? What name do you call it? Tell me if you know any more. The boy calls the animal a tortoise and the instrument a lyre. And it goes on kind of in this kind of way. And you can see it sort of breaks off towards the end. But the main point to understand is that this is the same theme, the same kind of subject matter as the Homeric hymn to Hermes, but yet treated in a kind of comic and almost sort of, slapstick sort of way. Okay, now returning to Hermes himself. In addition to the traits that I have discussed, which are all present to a greater or lesser degree in the Homeric hymn to Hermes, um, historically and even artistically and in Greek religion, Hermes is also linked to a distinctive type of statue that was prevalent in ancient Greece. Unlike other sculptures from that era, it has a very distinct form. And they are known as Herms. Herms are associated, Herms are these statues that you see in front of you. They were pillars, and they were commonly placed in marketplaces, in front of private homes, and at crossroads. And this connection to Hermes clearly reflects Hermes's role as a deity of boundaries. And as we said before, of crossing over. Herms served as markers to delineate spaces, indicating where the marketplace starts and other areas of the city's end. Um, or where a person's property begins and another ends. Hermes' connection with these boundary markers, these herms, is likely one of the oldest aspects of his identity. The term herm originally referred to simply a pile of stones in Greek, suggesting that the structure, which then evolved into a pillar, was named after the god rather than the reverse. In essence, Hermes was likely initially a personification, therefore, of a boundary marker, representing a boundary stone, a pile of stones, and then ultimately a pillar. And as I mentioned earlier, Herms are, they were, well, you can see in front of you, the face would be realistically carved with an anthropomorphic head, depicting Hermes with a full beard. Even though he is in mythology, a youthful god, he is often shown with mature facial hair. But apart from his head, the pillars lack any features such as arms, hands, or legs. So in this sense, they are unusual in Greek statues because typically Greek statues portray the whole body in all its detail. Now, the most famous, or one might even say infamous, historical event involving the Herms took place in Athens in the year 415 BC during the depths of the Peloponnesian War between Athens and Sparta, just before the Athenians were about to launch a massive naval expedition to Sicily. Numerous herms throughout Athens were found to have been smashed and mutilated. This act was perceived as a very, very bad omen for the upcoming campaign, since the herms were thought to protect the city and its citizens. The technical term for this is apotropaic. They had an apotropaic function, that is, that they were thought to ward off evil like gargoyles on medieval churches. This led to a significant political and into significant political and social ramifications, since the destruction of the Herms was attributed to a fellow named Alcibiades, who happened to be a prominent Athenian general and who had basically been the one arguing for and convincing the Athenians for the Sicilian expedition. According to a contemporary historical account written by Thucydides in Book 6, Chapter 27 of his History of the Peloponnesian War, this act was viewed as both a sacrilegious offense and a political scandal, since it occurred so shortly before Athens launched its ambitious and totally foolhardy military campaign against Syracuse in Sicily. The mutilation of the Herms incited panic among the Athenian populace, leading to suspicions of conspiracy. Thucydides notes that the incident sparked fears of a broader plot against the Athenian democracy, as many saw it as an attack on the city's religious and social order. Alcibiades, who had a reputation both for his brilliance and his controversial behavior, we'll put it that way, was implicated in the incident largely due to his known association with a group of young men who were rumored to engage in immoral acts. And some believe that he had orchestrated the vandalism as a form of mockery against the city's traditions and institutions in an attempt to undermine the expedition, which of course makes no sense since he was the one pleading for it. Thucydides, though, does seem to come down on this side, and he emphasizes Alcibiades' role in the scandal, highlighting the political tensions of the time and how they influenced public perception. The fallout from the Hermes mutilation led to a trial of several individuals accused of sacrilege, ultimately resulting in Alcibiades' recall from Sicily. And then he fled to avoid persecution and actually took up residence, betrayed Athens and went over to the Spartan side. And his flight marked a significant turning point in Athenian politics and military leadership since he defected to Sparta, and um, and that only further complicated the whole conflict between Athens and its enemies. The mutilation of the Hermes is a significant event, therefore, in Athenian history that illustrates the intertwining of religion, politics, and military affairs. Shows you how you cannot study Greek history without knowing the subject that we're talking about now in mythology. Um, and we might just sum it up by saying that Alcibiades' alleged involvement not only tarnished his own reputation, but also contributed to the eventual failure of the Sicilian expedition, which had profound consequences for Athens because they lost ultimately. They lost the Peloponnesian War against the Spartans in the year 404. Now, one other passage that I would like to read with you is a very beautiful one, and it involves Hermes' association with heralds and being a messenger, being somebody who accompanies travelers. And that comes at the end of the Iliad, one of the greatest pieces of not just Greek literature, but of all literature ever written. The Iliad, of course, recounts events in the 10th and last year of the Trojan War. The greatest Greek warrior Achilles has at the end by the end of the poem slain the greatest of the Trojan warriors, Hector, and he has his body and is abusing his body back by his tent down in the plain before the walls of Troy. And Hector's father, Priam, the king of Troy, is so depressed about this, so sad, so devastated that he wants to go down in the middle of the night to go to his enemy's tent, to go to the mightiest Greek warrior Achilles, the man who has slain his son, and to go and ask for his son's body back. And so he hitches up a mule wagon in the middle of the night and then sets off. And Zeus, out of pity for him, sends Hermes to be his guide. Let us read this passage together. They brought out a strong mule wagon, newly made, and set the body of the wagon fast on its bed. They took the mule yoke from the peg on which it hung, a yoke of boxwood with a knob on the top of it, and rings for the reins to go through. Then they brought a yoke band 11 cubits long to bind the yoke to the pole. They bound it on at the far end of the pole and put the ring over the upright pin, making it fast with 3 turns of the band on either side of the knob, and bending the thong of the yoke beneath it. This done, they brought from the store chamber the rich ransom that was to purchase the body of Hector, and they set it all orderly on the wagon. Then they yoked the strong harness mules which the Mysians had on a time given as a goodly present to Priam. For Priam himself they yoked horses which the old king had bred and kept for his own use. Thus heedfully did Priam and his servant see to the yoking of their cars at the palace. Then Hecuba, this is Priam's wife and the mother of Hector, then Hecuba came to them all sorrowful, with a golden goblet of wine in her right hand, that they might make a drink offering before they set out. She stood in front of the horses and said, "Take this, make a drink offering to Father Jupiter, and since you are minded to go to the ships in spite of me, pray that you may come safely back from the hands of your enemies. Pray to the son of Saturn," that it would be Kronos in Greek, that is referring to Zeus, "Lord of the whirlwind, who sits on Ida and looks down over all Troy. Pray him to send his swift messenger on your right hand, the bird of omen, which is strongest and most dear to him of all birds, that you may see it with your own eyes and trust it as you go forth to the ships of the Danaans. If all-seeing Jupiter will not send you this messenger, however set upon it you may be, I would not have you go to the ships of the Argives, the Greeks. And Priam answered, Wife, I will do as you desire me. It is well to lift hands in prayer to Jupiter, to Zeus, if so be he may have mercy on me. With this the old man bade the serving woman pour pure water over his hands, and the woman came bearing the water in a bowl. He washed his hands and took the cup from his wife. Then he made the drink offering and prayed, standing in the middle of the courtyard and turning his eyes to heaven. Father Jupiter, he said, that rulest from Ida, most glorious and most great, grant that I may be received kindly and compassionately in the tents of Achilles, and send your swift messenger upon my right hand, the bird of omen which is strongest and most dear to you of all birds, that I may see it with my own eyes and trust it as I go forth to the ships of the Danaans. So did he pray, and Jupiter, the Lord of counsel, heard his prayer. Forthwith he sent an eagle, the most unerring portent of all birds that fly, the dusky hunter that men also call the black eagle. His wings were spread abroad on either side, as wide as the well-made and well-bolted door of a rich man's chamber. He came to them flying over the city upon their right hands, and when they saw him, they were glad, and their hearts took comfort within them. The old man made haste to mount his chariot and drove out through the inner gateway and under the echoing gatehouse of the outer court. Before him went the mules, drawing the four-wheeled wagon, and driven by wise Idaeus. Behind these were the horses, which the old man lashed with his whip, and drove swiftly through the city, while his friends followed after, wailing and lamenting for him as though he were on his road to death. As soon as they had come down from the city and had reached the plain, his sons and sons-in-law, who had followed him, went back to Ilius, that is, to Troy. But Priam and Idaeus, as they showed out upon the plain, did not escape the ken of keen-sighted Jupiter, who looked down upon the old man and pitied him. Then he spoke to his son Mercury, and this is Hermes, and said, Mercury, for it is you who are the most disposed to escort men on their way, and to hear those whom you will hear. Go and so conduct Priam to the ships of the Achaeans, that no other of the Danaans, the Greeks, shall see him nor take note of him until he reach the son of Peleus, that's Achilles. Thus he spoke, and Mercury, guide and guardian, slayer of Argos, did as he was told. Forthwith he bound on his glittering golden sandals, with which he could fly like the wind over land and sea. He took the wand with which he seals men's eyes in sleep, or wakes them just as he pleases, and flew, holding it in his hand, till he came to Troy and to the Hellespont. To look at, he was like a young man of noble birth in the heyday of his youth, and beauty with the down just coming upon his face. Now when Priam and Idaeus had driven past the great tomb of Ilius, they stayed their mules and horses, that they might drink in the river, for the shades of night were falling. When therefore Idaeus saw Mercury standing near them, he said to Priam, Take heed, descendant of Dardanus. Here is matter which demands consideration. I see a man who I think will presently fall upon us. Let us fly with our horses, or at least embrace his knees, and implore him to take compassion upon us. When he heard this, the old man's heart failed him, and he was in great fear. He stayed where he was as one dazed, and the hair stood on end over his whole body. But the bringer of good luck came up to him and took him by the hand, saying, Whither, father, are you thus driving your mules and horses in the dead of night, when other men are asleep? Are you not afraid of the fierce Achaeans who are hard by you, so cruel and relentless? Should some one of them see you bearing so much treasure through the darkness of the flying night, what would not your state then be? You are no longer young, and he who is with you is too old to protect you from those who will attack you. For myself, I would do you no harm, and I will defend you from anyone else, for you remind me of my own father. And Priam answered, It is indeed as you say, my dear son. Nevertheless, some god has held his hand over me, in that he has sent such a wayfarer as yourself to meet me so opportunely. You are so comely in mien and figure, and your judgment is so excellent that you must come of blessed parents. Then said the slayer of Argos, guide and guardian, this is Hermes, Sir, all that you have said is right, but tell me, and tell me true. Are you taking this rich treasure to send it to a foreign people where it may be safe? Or are you all leaving strong Ilias in dismay now that your son has fallen, who was the bravest man among you and was never lacking in battle with the Achaeans? And Priam said, Woe, who are you, my friend? And who are your parents that you speak so truly about the fate of my unhappy son? The slayer of Argos, guide and guardian Hermes, answered him, Sir, you would prove me that you question me about noble Hector. Many a time have I set eyes upon him in battle, when he was driving the Argives to their ships and putting them to the sword. We stood still and marveled, for Achilles, in his anger with the son of Atreus, suffered us not to fight. I am his squire, and came with them in the same ship. I am a Myrmidon, and my father's name is Polyctor. He is a rich man, and about as old as you are. He has 6 sons besides myself, and I am the 7th. We cast lots, and it fell upon me to sail hither with Achilles. I am now come from the ships on to the plain. For with daybreak the Achaeans will set battle in array about the city. They chafe at doing nothing, and are so eager that their princes cannot hold them back. Then answered Priam, If you are indeed the squire of Achilles, son of Peleus, tell me now the whole truth. Is my son still at the ships, or has Achilles hewn him limb from limb and given him to his hounds? Sir, replied the slayer of Argos, guide and guardian Hermes, neither hounds nor vultures have yet devoured him. He is still just lying at the tents by the ship of Achilles. And though it is now 12 days that he has lain there, his flesh is not wasted, nor have the worms eaten him, although they feed on warriors. At daybreak, Achilles drags him cruelly round the sepulchre of his dear comrade, but it does him no hurt. So should come yourself. You should come yourself and see how he lies fresh as dew, with the blood all washed away, and his wounds, every one of them, closed, though many pierced him with their spears. Such care have the blessed gods taken of your brave son, for he was dear to them beyond all measure. The old man was comforted as he heard him, and said, My son, see what a good thing it is to have made due offerings to the immortals. For as sure as that he was born, my son never forgot the gods that hold Olympus, and now they requite it to him even in death. Accept therefore at my hands this goodly chalice. Guard me, and with heaven's help guide me till I come to the tent of the son of Peleus. Then answered the slayer of Argos, guide and guardian Hermes, Sir, you are tempting me and playing upon my youth, but you shall not move me, for you are offering me presents without the knowledge of Achilles, whom I fear and hold it great guiltless to defraud, lest some evil presently befall me. But as your guide, I would go with you even to Argos itself, and would guard you so carefully, whether by sea or land, that no one should attack you through making light of him who was with you. The bringer of good luck then sprang onto the chariot, and seizing the whip and reins, he breathed fresh spirit into the mules and horses. When they reached the trench and the wall that was before the ships, those who were on guard had just been getting their suppers, and the slayer of Argos threw them all into a deep sleep. Then he drew back the bolts to open the gates, and took Priam inside with the treasure he had upon his wagon. Ere long they came to the lofty dwelling of the son of Peleus, for which the Myrmidons had cut pine, and which they had built for their king. When they had built it, they thatched it with coarse tussock grass, which they had mown out of the plain. And all round it they made a large courtyard, which was fenced with stakes set close together. The gate was barred with a single bolt of pine, which it took 3 men to force into its place, and 3 to draw back so as to open the gate. But Achilles could draw it by himself. Mercury opened the gate for the old man and brought in the treasure that he was taking with him for the son of Peleus. Then he sprang from the chariot onto the ground and said, Sir, it is I, immortal Mercury, that am come with you, for my father sent me to escort you. I will leave you now, and will not enter into the presence of Achilles, for it might anger him that a god should befriend mortal man thus openly. Go within and embrace the knees of the son of Peleus, Achilles. Beseech him by his father, his lovely mother, and his son. Thus you may move him. And with these words, Mercury went back to high Olympus. Okay, my friends. So I know that's been a real scatter of information and of text. I will just kind of end our discussion now with one brief distillation of almost all the themes that we've brought up. And this is a short poem, Odes 110 by the Roman poet Horace, uh, who wrote this poem to Mercury. Mercury, eloquent grandson of Atlas, who shrewdly formed the savage customs of recently formed men with his voice and with the custom of the beautiful wrestling place. I will sing of you, messenger of the gods and great Jove, and parent of the curved lyre, crafty to hide whatever is pleasing with a funny trick. Once, unless you had returned the cows, stolen through deceit, while Apollo tried to frighten the baby with a terrifying voice, he laughed at the widowed quiver. Not only that, but also wealthy Priam slipped you by the arrogant leader Atreus to abandon Troy and Thessalian fires and camps unjust to Troy. You restore pious souls to happy homes, and you confine the light crowd with your golden staff, pleasing to the highest and lowest of the gods. And with that, my friends, I think we should put a bookmark in it, and we will see each other next time for the discussion of the deity Dionysius. Thank you.